The stream is about to start. We'll talk about code or whatever we'll talk about today. It's about to start, so please hang tight while I check that everything is okay. Sound check, camera check, lights check. How's my hair? Oh, wait, I don't have any hair. Maybe put some pants on and I am good to go. So get ready wherever you are, 'cause the stream is about to start. Get ready wherever you are, 'cause the stream is about to start. Hello everyone, I am the voice from Beyond, also known as Leandro Facchinetti, and I have two very special guests with me today. Mike from Let's Talk About Reaper and the person behind all the plugins from Tukan Studios. John, how are you all doing?
Hi everybody.
Good afternoon or morning or whatever it is to you.
Yeah, so I am a bit under the weather, that's why I didn't turn on my camera, but I did want to talk to you all about the plugins, and I know that Mike is using the plugins, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and now we have the person behind all of these plugins, these awesome looking plugins. And so I guess, first of all, can you say how you got started in plugin development and how you even maybe got started with Reaper?
Yeah, that's a funny little story, because I've been using Cubase for more than 20 years, and thought it was a great DAW to work with. And we teach courses in audio music production at the Music Academy, and someone should do a course in Cubase, but came from Pro Tools, and was a bit lost on Cubase. And I thought, well, that shouldn't happen to me if I had to do teaching Pro Tools. So I had a look at Pro Tools again, and I really didn't like it again. And but then I thought, well, I should have a look at another system than Cubase. So I started having a look at Reaper, and I really liked it.
What was about Cubase that you didn't like?
I like Cubase. That's no problem with Cubase.
Okay.
It was about seeing something different.
Okay.
Because I thought if somewhere I have to teach in maybe Pro Tools or Reaper, I'd get in trouble.
I see.
So I have to know these things. So I had a look at Reaper first time in about, when was it, September? And yeah, I really liked it. And I liked how you can customize everything. And
the blessing and the curse of Reaper.
Yes.
Right. Actually, on that topic, I'm kind of curious, because that does seem to be a blessing and a curse. So, as someone who has spent a lot of time in another DAW, how do you feel about the level of customization? Was it overwhelming to you at first, or did you embrace the change because of the possibilities it presented?
Well, having done a lot of things in Linux in the past, I was used to customizing things. So I really loved it. And that's one thing that kept me in things doing in Reaper. Because customizing, yeah, it's a great thing to get the platform the way you want it, and not to must adapt a workflow that you're told from the developers.
And
So,
even though it's been a short amount of time that you spent in Reaper compared to the time that you spent in Cubase and other DAWs, do you have a hard time looking back at the other ones wondering why they don't follow suit?
no, not really. But again in Reaper, it's it just felt home very quickly because it could do everything. I'm a quick learner on that, and that gave me the ability of really getting to work with it in a short amount of time.
And
So,
were you the kind of Linux user that customizes everything, or you just get a distro out of the box and start using it?
Well, my Linux days are 10 years ago, but I really customized everything.
I've been down that rabbit hole. Many have died on that hill.
Yeah, and during that time, I don't know if you know that this Barrel and Comets window managers were hyped, and people really liked this 3D-ish things on the desktops.
Yeah, Compass, I think the thing was
and
called.
that cube spinning to switch your desktops.
Yeah, exactly. And I really liked that too. I thought that was cool and impressive to people seeing me working with my computers, doing such things. But I had computers that didn't have the power, saying the graphic cards didn't have this OpenGL thing. So I tried to build a workaround that the CPU would do all the work. And one time I really got that done, but it was crappy.
I think that for me, most of the fun when I was playing around with customizing desktop systems and everything was understanding how the system works and configuring it. But after everything was configured, I would be like, do I really need this? Probably not. And then I wouldn't use it anymore.
That sounds like Compiz in a nutshell right there.
Yeah. But actually, if 10 years ago we've had the ability of using Linux with audio, so well as it is today, I wouldn't have switched to a Mac.
That's a good point. When I transitioned from Linux to Mac, I thought that one of the advantages was that I didn't have many possibilities in terms of customization. So I guess it's the curse of customization, but also I felt that it was easier to explore creative endeavors on the Mac as opposed to a Linux machine. I guess these days this is not true, not so much anyway.
Yeah, exactly. So on the Mac you could run Pro Tools and Cubase and Logic and a lot of other DAWs. And I used GIMP for graphics on Linux, and I use it on a Mac, so that's not a difference to me. But a lot of integration, of hardware integration and things like that just didn't work on Linux.
Yeah,
so that
that's
was
still
a
true.
big problem.
To some extent, that's still true. But Reaper is not like that. Reaper works very well on Linux and Mac and Windows. So you got into Reaper, and then you also got into writing, not only customizing things, but writing your own plugins. So how did that come along?
That came along just because I've installed that Reaper on my Mac, and I realized I was missing a lot of things in plugins. I had a lot of plugins in Cubase I used there from the UAD system and Waves most of the time. Well, I don't really use Waves, but I have them all. And then I realized how many of the stock plugins of Cubase I'm using constantly. So basically, all the work I was doing, I went to the stock plugins and just went for colorization and things like that to UAD systems. So all the compressors, equalizers, and things you basically do were done on stock plugins in Cubase. And I felt like missing them in Reaper. Mm-hmm. And then I started searching, well, there should be some freeware plugins doing that. And I didn't find plugins I really liked. And I saw these JS plugins and realized, well, they do sound great, but the problem I had with the JS plugins and with the stock plugins in Reaper was if you look at the GUI of them, or it's just generic sliders in most of the cases, you won't recognize at first glance which plugin have I just opened. What have I dealt in? Is it much? Is it not so much? So you have to really keep your eyes on the screen and read what is written there to see, well, this slider is this and this slider that, because they're not optically organized. They don't have different colors. Everything looks the same. So, and that was my problem because when mixing, I'm working quite fast because you're getting used to what you hear. You can't spend your time with the eyes on the screen reading things. You have to be fast there, because while you're reading things, you're hearing the audio and you're getting used to what you hear, and then you make the wrong decisions in mixing. So the idea was having plugins from the JS set that sound good, to give them a user interface that is, at first glance, you can see which one is it, what have I done there.
Yeah,
so that was the main idea behind that.
It's interesting that it seems like many people who are bringing innovation into the community, like yourself, are people who are relatively new and bringing fresh ideas from other places. So, did you have experience writing plugins before?
Not a bit.
So how did you make the jump from like...
I'm sorry. I can't think of any time that I've ever sat down to Reaper or any other application and thought, why don't I just start making my own plugins for this? It's amazing how quickly you've started doing this and how you've practically become a Reaper legend over the span of a few months.
Oh, thank you for that. I've done some programming before, but not plugins, not what I call real-time things. Because a plugin just doesn't take a file and computes something out of a file. It has to do things in a stream, in an audio stream. So that's real time to me, in a way. I never did that before. I did some management software for course management and things like that, and I did MIDI software. I don't know if you've seen that. That's a video I've done before my Reaper time. It is in German, a video where I have my Soundcraft desk, and it's an analog desk, and I programmed it so that I can move the faders on the desk, and the faders in Cubase move as well. And that also works for Reaper because I transferred the desk into a Mackie protocol. So things like that. And I wrote tools that are useful for me, and I never shared software because there was always only software that was useful for some things I was doing there. And then the plugin programming started the same way. I wanted to have plugins where I can look at the GUI and instantly see what I'm doing there. And then at some point I thought, well, that could be something that other people would like.
And people do like.
Right. I'm curious, like with all of this newfound fame, for lack of a better word, has that changed your view of the Reaper community, or I'm not quite sure how to word what I'm saying. How has this affected you? How are you taking in all the new feature requests and all the feedback?
Difficult question. In a way, I appreciate the amount of feedback I get. So that's really cool. Doing things and not blowing them out to the world, and you don't know what's happening to that, or if anyone is interested. So that's pretty cool. People saying, "Well, thank you. That is a great plugin. I have another idea." Things like that. That's really cool. What is not so cool? I understand those guys too, but I'm not a machine where you tell your favorite plugin from manufacturer X or Y, and I say, "Could you make this plugin for Reaper free?" So, and that's happening all the time. Like, well, there's this and that channel strip, this and that compressor, or anything. So, I won't reinvent existing plugins or reconstruct them in JS code, because the plugins already exist. You can go there and buy them for some money. I don't know. It's from some dollars to some $100, I guess, in many cases. But I won't be sitting here in Studio B for 4 or 6 weeks developing a plugin for free that is already existing. So that makes no sense to me.
Okay, me being the smart aleck of this trio, you say that now, but what about this treasure?
Oh, no, that in fact was a challenge. That was not a request. Like, I've seen the distressor plugin in UID, and I want that for free because I don't have an Apollo interface or something like that. And could you make that, please? It wasn't that way. It was that was different. Someone challenged me like, well, it seems that it is not possible to emulate this unit in software because there are only a few who already tried, and they are all not convincing. So there was the challenge of, well, I had a look at the distressor, and I really I know these units. I thought, well, how hard can it be?
Famous last words. How hard was it?
See, I think that UAD is considering you a threat, since all of a sudden, I don't think that it's a coincidence that Tukan Studios releases Distreasure, and a few months later, UAD is like, we got to release native plugins.
Nah,
so now you don't have to have the hardware to use their plugins.
I don't think that that they.
This is your fault, John.
Yeah, they wouldn't be bothered by me, I think. Mainly because all I am doing is just available for Reaper, and I think they have their market somewhere else.
Well, hopefully soon this is no longer going to be the case. So right now it already exists on Windows. There is this replugs, which is from 6 years ago. It's quite outdated, but many JS effects work in replugs. But there are some other efforts going on that will try to bring JS effects into other hosts. So there is this thing called, instead of JS effects, it's YS effects.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And people who develop Reaper are considering the idea of open sourcing the JS effects engine. The language is already open. The implementation of EL2 is already open source, but they're considering open sourcing the engine that provides the extra functionality that is particular to JS effects. So hopefully that will spark more projects like this that bring JS effects into other DAWs, and then you can conquer the world with your plugins.
Well, can you imagine seeing like a video on Nail the Mix or something when one of the instructors is working in Pro Tools and pulling up a Tukan Studios plugin instead of Brainworks or UAD? It's going to happen.
It's gonna maybe. Well, funny, but yeah, just not my intent.
And what was your first?
Really, the idea was, or my intention, or how you want to call it, was much smaller. It was just, well, I'm doing plugins for me and trying things out, and as for this special Distreasure plugin, accepting a challenge and things like that. And it's really like, can I do this? Well, I can do this, and people like it. Let's do some more of that. But it's not that I tried or attempt to be the plugin manufacturer that kills
I think
some
that's kind of
others.
what's awesome about this, though, is that it's not that you're making these things to satisfy the zombie horde that's coming after you, but it's more like you're making things just because you like it, and it just happens to be that everybody else likes it too.
Yeah, but that's exactly what's going on here.
So, in your work, you are using your own plugins.
Yes, I'm developing those plugins for me to work with them. But it's funny. I've been doing so much development the recent last year or half year that I just did only one really commercial production on Reaper with my own plugins during that time.
Oh yeah, that I can relate to that. I started to editing a podcast on Reaper, and then I was like, oh, I think I can do the workflow better. And then I haven't done another podcast since because I've been writing scripts and writing Automixer and all that good stuff. So yeah, it goes like that.
Yeah, and well, maybe I'll cut down the speed of development a bit. So the plugins will not be released that fast in a row, and try using Reaper a lot more for my own productions, because during that time I've been of course I have to live off something, so I'm a professional sound engineer, and I'm not so used to Reaper already that I can do a real production in it while my customers are around. So I just still work in Cubase because I didn't have the chance to work in Reaper so much to practice. And because, 99% of the time that Reaper is open on my screen, I'm doing plugins.
It's really interesting. So it's like, to put it into a bad analogy, you know how to manufacture a car, but you can't drive.
Kind of, yeah. That's kind of true. But I really appreciate what other people are doing. So I've seen this video that Adam Steele did with the Raspberry Pi. Can we mix a song on Raspberry Pi with Tukan plugins? And that is very satisfying to me, seeing things like that. So I didn't do the mix or the audio work on that, but I see how doable it is with my plugins. So I see when I get on doing things myself, I'll have some plugins I really can work with. And don't get me wrong, I've been doing some bad language today. I've been doing some songs in Reaper already. No commercial productions, but to practice, to try out things, to try the plugins and things like that. You already saw it on the screen in my videos that there were some songs I did in Reaper. So I've already used this, but not in productions, in paid productions. Let's put it like that.
What was your first plugin that you released?
Oh, released a bunch at once. It wasn't like, I've done a plugin. Would you like to see my plugin? There was a story before that. There's a German language community, audio community on the internet, and I made some plugins, like 5 or 6 or 7, and I gave them to this community for download and said, who wants to try them and give me feedback, things like that. And Well, they really didn't like it and told me to, in a way, to stop it. And they said, well, it's a waste of time. Your plugins are so bad and full of bugs, and they don't sound right, and simply not it. And that was the time when I moved to the Reaper forums, and I had these plugins, and I again shared them there and said, well, what do you think? And people were like, wow, that are cool plugins. So that kept me going.
Yeah. So Arya will be joining us soon. He seems to have come back from lunch, apparently. And isn't that something? For people who are wondering why is the stream happening here and not on Arya's channel, that's what's up. Was a logistical mishap. But I guess he will be joining us soon. And okay, so meanwhile, I do have a question for you. So you started with, I guess, just taking the existing JS effects. I have seen in your code base, in some of your plugins, that you borrowed parts of the digital signal processing from some stock plugins by Stilwell and probably other people as well, Loser and many other stock plugins. And then you were mostly just building user interfaces, packaging them in a way that is easier to use and also more attractive. But I suppose that these days you are also developing some original algorithms, right?
Yeah, exactly. So as I just told you, it's that was my starting point. Was well, I have a plugin and I want to give it a GUI. So the plugin itself was done before with generic sliders. So and I started with the to answer your last question, it wasn't not the first that I released. The first plugin I've done was the envelope shaper. Because it was, I thought the audio engine is a very good envelope shaper, and I realized that on the original JS plugin. And then I thought, well, it's just the sliders that I always have to go like, okay, what have I done there? And I needed this graphics thing, this line that shows me how much of a tag and release did I do there and things like that. So I started with that, and then I tried to figure out how could I place graphical knobs that are turnable with the mouse, and that was the starting point to say, well, okay, that works. Let's do a compressor. And so I went through the JS plugins and found a nice compressor and said, well, this is a compressor I can work with. Let's give it a GUI. And the first plugins I did were like that. And then in the next step, there were plugins that were very configurable. And in my versions, I put them into a shape. So I pre-configured plugins and gave them a sound design, and the user has not that much, so many options that were in the original plugin. Seems like you can do less, but actually I know that many people are overwhelmed by too many options and don't know what to do, or if you give them a good basis on a sound design and 4 or 5 parameters that they can change, they get a good sound at least.
And there is also the question of familiarity, because there is an 1176-like plugin in Reaper, but it doesn't look like an 1176, and your version does look like one. So
yeah, and there's a basic difference between the original plugin and what I made of it, because on the original plugin you have a threshold, and this just simply not exists on the 1176.
Yeah.
So you have the input gain and the output gain, and a fixed threshold in the device. So that's a familiarity.
Yeah, exactly. And when people load your plugin, they immediately know where they want to go and how it's going to react.
Yes, and then in further steps in improving the plugins, I really took the basis from some plugins. I thought they were cool, and did parameters, hide them and set them fix, and do the sound design and do changes like you don't have a threshold anymore, but instead you have this input gain thing, and then I started improving the existing plugins. So really checking, are they really doing what they supposed to do? Oh, no, not in this case. There should be some other kind of total harmonic distortion. Or no, it's too fast, it's too slow, it's the wrong curve here and the wrong curve there. And then I started changing the audio engine in these plugins. So if you compare it to the original plugins, you find differences here and there, where I did changes to that to more, so sound more original or analogish or simply different from the original plugin.
Yeah, and in this process of investigating existing plugins, some of them are really old, and some of them have bugs in them. Most famously, like the 1175 had a big bug in there that was causing negative compression, and it was fixed relatively recently, in I guess 1 or 2 years ago. So the plugin was sitting there for, I guess, 10, 15 years with a major bug in there. And in the process of finding these plugins and adapting them, did you find some old bugs like, what the hell is going on? How come this has been here for so long?
Yes, definitely. I often find such kind of bugs, and especially this one you told. I found that too. So I, seem to be using the old version, the buggy version, for my plugin. And the community then tells me, well, I've been trying your plugin and I found a bug. And sometimes I think, well, that's not a bug from my side. that has been there already. And then I have to go through the code I didn't write myself, finding a bug. And that happened sometimes. But
there's nothing more exhilarating than debugging somebody else's code.
Well, in a way, by adapting that code, you have to debug that in order to say, well, I've done a cool plugin. You can't hide and say, no, this part of code is not from me. That's simply not how it works.
And John, I'm not sure if you're monitoring the chat or not, but LD Drums 20 gives you mad respect for the large beer you're drinking.
Oh, that is a regular glass of beer here, but actually it's non-alcohol because I'm talking here, and I couldn't talk if I drank.
No, I'm drinking antifreeze over here.
So no, I decided to drink a non-alcohol beer because this stream then started kind of surprising.
Yeah, everyone was startled. Are we streaming? Yeah. Yes, we are live.
Yes, and so before it was said that this interview would be rescheduled, and I just shifted my when do I eat, when do I sleep.
You thought you had a free evening, didn't you?
Yes, and then it was like, no, we're going online. So, okay, what am I doing now? So sometimes, non-alcohol beer gives a bit of energy instead of food.
And about these new plugins, it seems like you are doing some analog modeling, right? What kinds of techniques are you running into, and how are you coming up? How are you doing these challenges of modeling these pieces of gear?
Well, in the first place, it starts with having the general idea. What could I do? And then I know things about audio techniques. Hopefully, I know things about audio techniques in the analog domain. So I have a friend who repairs and rebuilds every kind of stuff, like from tube things to synthesizers, and has a very large 96 channel analog console in his studio, and unbelievable. and repaired this desk himself, and he told me a lot about and then I changed the VCA chip here and the resistor there and the tube there and the transformer there, and that changed the sound in this way and that way, and he always measures what he's doing. So I know how changing parts in the analog systems can change the behavior of the units, and the challenge for me is to rebuild that in an algorithm that hopefully does the same things. So it's about what I told in the some channel something video about what a transformer does, what a transistor does, a tube does, how noise comes in, and the amount of total harmonic distortion you get from your channels, the amount of harmonic distortion you get from your master bus, and things like that. So in a way, rebuild the units that can be found in an analog mixer, for example, in this case, and really go measuring analog mixers, big things, small things, and try and see what's going on an analyzer. How much noise do we get? Is the noise shaped in any way? What happens if I route 2 channels? What happens if I use 24 channels? Things like that. And really try and do sound files on what happens to a test signal on the analog piece of gear, and then try to rebuild that in the plugins. So I use the same test signal and try to get the same result, at least.
It's mostly a closed box kind of analysis. You don't pry open the units and try to model the circuit.
No, not really. I'm not modeling, to be precise. I'm in a way imitating. Let's call it that way. So I can see things on analyzers or other devices for measurement, and most of the time I also trust my ears. So is it like, do we have the same impression of the sound? Because nothing would be worse than having the same picture in the analyzer, but if you play the sound through unit A and play the same sound through unit B, and you have a completely different impression of what's going on there. So most of the cases, I really try to get things not modeled, but to get them by hearing. Is the impression of what the unit does the same? And when it is, it's not so important if it does exactly the same thing. It has to do the same sound.
And in some ways, depending on what you're doing, trying to model every component, it's just going to consume more CPU for no tangible sonic benefit, I think.
Yes, definitely. But I'm really doing modules. So I really think like, how is a mixer or a compressor or a tape machine or things like that, how do they work? And then I see, okay, here's a piece of electronic element that adds an amount, significant amount of distortion, and well, this seems to add some noise or do things to the frequency domain and things like that. And then I go and make program modules that represent the pieces of electrics in a real unit. So I can switch on and off every transistor, if you will.
Mm. And one thing that we have been talking about for your plugins is something that you may want to talk about now, which is something that people were asking or started to ask recently, which is the adding a feature for oversampling in your plugins.
Yes, and that kind of scared me, I must say, because well, I've tried adding libraries from Justin Johnson and Tail for oversampling, and it seemed to work. But the aliasing effects I had were just suppressed by not about exactly 6 dB, and I thought, well, it's not worth the effort having that much alias effects left. And I thought, well, then I would need more oversampling or different techniques or other different libraries or write something myself. And this is where difficulties for me start, because that really goes into the mathematics in the digital domain. And I know what is going on in the analog side and try to rebuild them. And actually, I'm not a great programmer or a mathematician. You say it right? And so I try to do things with the knowledge I have to get those done. And doing oversampling is really challenging for someone who has no clue of that. And well, there are rumors that oversampling plugin option will come in Reaper, built in the Reaper system. So I won't reinvent the wheel and spend weeks and weeks building a oversampling. And just when I release it, a Reaper version will release where it says, well, you can now oversample.
And whatever they do in Reaper itself, it's probably going to be faster than whatever we could do in JSFX because of the overhead of running JSFX.
Yes, and everything is pre-compiled in Reaper. And I guess the just-in-time compiling is not so fast, but that's a guess.
If only there was some truth to that rumor.
Pardon?
If only that rumor were true. You can see I'm looking at the pre-release forum now.
And what do you see there?
We don't talk about the pre-release forum.
Yeah, that's the first rule of the pre-release forum.
Yeah, okay. Good that I'm not in the pre-release forum.
What pre-release forum? It doesn't exist.
It's a pre-release forum for Tukan plugins.
Yeah, that's what we meant. We'll edit that out in post.
So, no, I'm really, to be honest, I'm really hoping for that option because, yeah, my attempts were successful, but not successful enough in doing things with oversampling.
So I mentioned some libraries like Tail has, by the way, he is on the chat, so hello, Tail, and he has a library, and there is also the DSP cookbook, I think, and there is Jorent's Love's library for user interfaces. Do you use any of these?
No. Well, as said, I really started everything in a very naive way. Like, well, I've done something in Star Basic and in Quick Basic. Why can't I make plugins? So that was my idea, and by doing so, I just realized, well, there is an audio cookbook. Well, I didn't know that before. So I just knew Zengpil audio, if you know that. I don't think you know that, because that is all German. And this is a kind of lexicon for where you can look up everything about audio and acoustics and things like that. But it's not for digital things. It's really for physics, acoustics.
Interesting.
But the formulas are all there, so I could look them up there. And I really didn't think about things like implementing oversampling. Of course, I know what it does, and of course I know why people want to have this, and but that just didn't come to my mind when I started doing some channel or something. There was nothing I thought about. So later I realized, well, yeah, that should have been on my mind earlier. And other things like that don't have anything to do with the audio processing, like we want MIDI implementation, so we can use your plugins with a controller. Or this funny thing we had in the last video about how about undo points, which is funny because I didn't think of that, because in Cubase plugins just generally don't create undo points. So I didn't know that was possible.
But in JS Effects, you can manipulate the undo history?
In a way. You can say, how do I put that? You have to tell Reaper from your JS effect that something has changed. And if you don't tell that, there will be no undo point for that.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I knew that it was possible to change sliders, and I know of the serialized block and whatnot, but I didn't know that you have some control over the undo history, not from JS Effects. I knew that, of course, that's possible from Reaper scripts, but not from JS Effects.
Yeah, the thing is that my plugins are calibrated with the knobs you see on the screen by the user from the graphics section of the code, and not from the sliders section of the code. So Reaper just sees moving graphics, and the graphics in a way change the sound, and everything is stored in the sliders. But Reaper just don't realize that the sliders are changing. And if you don't tell Reaper you have changed the slider, then no undo point will be written.
Interesting. Good to know. You learn something every day.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot in making the plugins. A lot about Reaper, a lot about the community, and I've met several nice people like you here. And I learned a lot about audio programming. I learned a lot about electronics, and mathematics.
You learned a lot about dealing with trolls on the internet.
Yes, true.
Yeah, it is a complicated predicament when people are doing open source and they get some notoriety, and then some people, not most people, but some people will have the attitude of like, you want me to do this thing, to fix this bug, to implement this feature, to add this new plugin, and you're like, no, I'm doing this on my free time. So it can be an awkward relationship, but in most cases, I think it's very rewarding. Most people are positive, especially on the Reaper community. I find that most people are positive.
Yeah, the good definitely outweighs the bad, and they tend to push out the trolls pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I guess
that's exactly what I hoped for, and what in the first places didn't happen. But nowadays it's happening. That if someone comes and is let's say some kind negative, that no one defended me, and I felt alone then, because people were saying, "Well, great plugins, brilliant," and I thought, well, if you think so, why don't you come to my side if someone attacks me?
I'll come to your side. Who do I beat up? Tell me.
Hi.
Hello. Look who's here.
It lives. We'll make room
I've been
for you.
here for like 2 hours, or I've been here for a while.
Yeah, but I saw that your mic was off, so I thought you just had the call open. So do you want to turn on your camera and I can bring you on the conversation?
I cannot. My USB-C hub seems to be broken, so when I connect my webcam, I can't move my mouse. So that's great.
There's a
Excellent.
script for that.
So hello, Arya. How are you doing?
I'm all right. It's a bit confusing because I guess everybody had links to the channel, and now, so I went and changed all the links to everywhere. So hopefully whoever wants to be here is here. Otherwise, they yell at me. Somebody yelled at me for for sharing the Kenny Joya live stream too late. And I was like, well, it wouldn't happen if you subscribe to the channel and keep an eye on things. But anyway, hopefully whoever needs to be here is here. And yeah, I think, I can't make my webcam work. So I guess there's just a couple of voices.
Yeah, I am a
Going on.
disembodied voice today as well.
But John, tell us who, where, and how. Is it White X? Did you get a negative comment from White X? Because if you did, that dude's an asshole. Everybody knows.
Okay. Just thought for a while that you would say, because if he did, that was me.
No.
No, I got a very interesting, a negative comment from someone called John Matthews.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
Maybe it was you from the future.
And it's so funny because I think there's some difference in the name with only with one T or without the H in John or something like that. And I thought, well, is that a troll who made up a YouTube account with my name, and what is happening here? And no, I realized, and that is really impressive, that this John Matthews had his YouTube account before me. And I already have this for 12 years or 13. And so that's not the case that he chose this name because of me. And is someone doing, audio music production related things. So, well, that's funny. Sometimes people write things like, I think this was John Matthews, I'm not sure. Someone wrote, have you worked for Microsoft before, releasing buggy things and let the community fix it?
Wow.
But interestingly enough, that is to some extent the testing process that goes into Reaper itself. The pre-releases are there so that people can test things and find bugs. And in some ways, you could say that having automated tests and more formal tests, unit tests, that kind of thing, there is an advantage to having these kinds of tests, but you are limited to your creativity as the person testing. What are the kinds of things that could go wrong? While if you release things to the public and they start using it, I think that in some ways it's more effective because people will use their own way these features and they will find the bugs that you wouldn't think of. So,
Right, it'll expose those issues a lot faster than a closed loop type of testing environment.
yeah, so
Exactly.
I kind of appreciate your. I know that the person was just trying to be a troll, but I think that in some ways that may be a good way of reasoning about testing software.
Yes, and in a way, I'm doing that. I have no team of beta testers or something like that. So I make the plugins and I try them, and when I think it seems to be okay, I'll do a video like, well, here's the new plugin, try it if you like it, and report bugs. So that's how it works for me. And sometimes there are very, very embarrassing bugs in there. I say, wow, how couldn't I see that before? And but yeah, I didn't realize it before. I thought it was okay. And sometimes there are bugs like a very funny bug that has been reported was I can't switch the desk in the sum channel plugin. It's just switchable when Reaper is in play mode. I said, well, no, okay, I tried that all the time. It's possible, and if it works here, it should work there. And then it turned out, no, I just have the sum channel on the master channel. And I said, okay, well, let me try that again. And I deleted all the sum channel plugins and made a new plugin, a new project, and inserted it on the master channel. And said, well, no, I can't switch it in the stop mode. So it's not about the play mode and stop mode. So what are you doing there? And then it turned out, if you have a project that has no channels but only a master channel, and then you insert that plugin, you can only switch the desk in play mode. And I said, well, okay, that's a fine bug, but let me ask you, what do you do with a Reaper project with no channels at all? So obviously I didn't test that in this case,
Right.
because I wouldn't come to the idea testing that in the case that you have no audio source for Reaper. It just makes no sense.
And the funny thing is that if this bug was there for a while, I don't think it was, but if it was there for a while, you would fix it somehow, and then someone would come saying, oh, you broke my workflow. I always put the plugins on the master channel without any tracks. That's my jam. That's how I work. And then it'd be like, really? What the hell?
Yeah, we've had that before. With the Disk Treasure plugin, which, as I saw, it was a challenge. In the first version, I put everything up and made the plugin running and hoped it was fine. And it worked. Everything worked as intended. And then I realized late in the evening some day, oh no, it's your feedback detection in the compressor. It's not feed forward. So I implemented feedback detection. And then all the calculations for the compression curves are wrong. And I didn't realize that. And I released the plugin, and a day later, someone wrote to me, "What, John? Nice plugin, but all your compression modes are 2x1." And I said, okay, no, that's not possible. I tested that plugin, but I didn't really try it so much time in testing after implementing this feedback mode, because I thought, well, everything's up and running and I just have to do it feedback mode and everything's fine. But I was completely wrong. And then I nearly had to rewrite the whole plugin for the feedback mode. And that really took some time, and people were very curious testing the plugin and say, wow, nice plugin, but so buggy. And I really had to be quick with the update so that people, couldn't wait so long. And that was a bit hard for me, so I really sat there all night and tried to getting everything done. And yeah, what was the question? I'm sorry. We've had that before, that I released the I made a video. Yeah, I remember the question. I released a video where I said, well, I'm working on it, and please be patient. It takes some time, and I know that I made a mistake here, and I will fix all that, and you will have a very working plugin afterwards. So give me some days, and I'll do that. And then many people answered to that, like, no, the plugin is good, I like it. And, well, keep it. Or some wrote, no, keep it. Others wrote, okay, make a new version so that there's the buggy version and the new version, and you can choose from your plugin list, because we want to have it, keep it. And others said, kind of Bob Ross thing. It was a funny little accident. So and then I decided to make this special mode that you can activate in the plugin, the buggy mode. So you have the real plugin, and you can switch that back to the completely false version for people who like it.
Do you find that you get overwhelmed sometimes with all the feedback, particularly with like I guess feature requests and even the bug reports?
No, it's okay. The amount is okay, and it's really what keeps me going. So it's really the feedback that that makes me feel like, well, I'm really talking to people. I'm not putting that out, and it's a black box to me what people think. So it's great. It's great. And many people are saying, well, we love your plugins, they're great. And some trolls, of course. But there are also people who are really, constructive with what they say. So not only, could you make the auto-tune plugin, please? So
yeah, I saw that comment just now. I'm going through all your videos and trashing the troll. I just got
Thank
John
you.
Matthews.
funny
Yeah.
trolls, yeah.
Yeah, Arya
I-
is a
I-
professional troll slayer.
Yeah, some people told me like you shouldn't respond to negative comments on your channel because it's like not good for the channel. But I'm like, no, that's like, because people know that nobody engages with their comments, so they kind of like do whatever. And I know that it hurts the channel, but I just like doing it. Like if somebody says something, I'm gonna say something back.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
You should rent that service
um,
out to other YouTubers.
Yeah, straight up. I mean, whoever has trolls, like I thoroughly enjoy just engaging with people to the point where they're like, okay, like I'm out of this. I wasn't that serious.
It's like Adam from Hi YouTube, I'm Dad. He's got this one person who makes it his sole purpose in life to find anything he posts and thumbs down it or post a negative comment.
Yeah, well, we have like a couple of those people like on Reddit, and then from there they kind of get released onto the social media, and it's always people who like don't make their own videos. It's like, why don't you make some videos, and then let's see how you do it, because
Yeah.
yeah.
There were people too saying, well, do audio demos, do a video of how to mix a song with your plugins, do this, do that. And I always write back, why don't you do that? You have all the plugins. So
It's
it's
also
like if
kind of
John-
going to like any plugin manufacturer, or like buying a guitar from Gibson and then being like, well, okay, well, I have the guitar. Why don't you play it for me too? It's like, dude, I'm doing a totally other thing over here.
yeah.
Well, I'm thinking
But-
if John can make plugins because what he wanted didn't exist, surely the general public can make a video.
hopefully.
Yeah.
And but about the constructive feedback I get, there's sometimes people are not just reporting bugs, but also giving me the solution. So the people seem to be people who can deal with software code. So they don't report your plugin behaves like this and that, but they report in line 952 you placed a 0, but it has to be a 1 or something like that, and that is why your plugin does this and that wrong. So
That's something
that's
that I
very
find truly
constructive.
fascinating about this community is how willing people are to jump in and help with no immediate reward or benefit to them. They do it just because they want to help.
Yes, and others, what is it's genius. Someone wrote to me, well, I've done 4 or 5 or 6 nice plugins, and here's the code, and you may use them and release them. So that's great too. And others which just or well, why just there was this Smurf who made the plugin skins. So all the plugins as you know them, I made the graphics myself. But there was someone who said, well, I like your graphics, but I think it would be nice to have an alternative background for the GUI or alternative knobs or things like that. And so for some channel, we have this dark mode, which is not made by me. So someone emailed me and said, wow, hey, I made some other background graphics. How about putting them in? And I said, well, why not? Let's make a dark mode plugin. And so that's very constructive. And others, I had to ask for some code because, as I said, nowadays I'm really creating my own plugins. But before I did that, I used plugins and gave them a GUI and changed the way of using them in some way or whatever. And nowadays I'm creating my own plugins, but still I often use elements from other people's code. So, and I have to ask then, may I use that? And it has not happened yet that someone says no. Everybody says, well, fine, yeah, do that.
I was gonna ask you, and sorry if y'all already talked about this before I got on. So like with some of your plugins, like the lexicon or the delay, the GUI looks like the kind of like analog versions, but did you like get the analog versions and try to kind of reverse engineer them, or were you also like looking at the other kind of companies that have done like emulation software on those, or what was that process like?
If I wanted to do I would take impulse response files for that. So, but I didn't. No, it's really the lexicon 2 is based on the delay on the delay was it library from someone else, and I put that really classically a delay line feedback thing reverb, and try to improve it and improve it and improve it. And in some point I got like, okay, now we're getting close to where I want. And I'm a big fan of lexicon reverbs, especially of the LXP15 and PCM90. So the early 90s things. And I know how they sound, and I tried to get my plugin sound that way, but it's not reversed engineering or something like that. It's just that the sound, the reverb coming from the unit reminds me of having that 19-inch unit there and using it. So that's more the way of doing it, and the delay is just a delay. So it's a digital delay. There's a simple buffer that buffers and delays, and the work in the delay was primarily about getting the all these timing things like okay, how to calculate it's a quarters delay or a eighth note delay, or how to do it with triplets or dotted notes, and left and right and ping pong and bit crush, or put a filter in and things like that. So the main work was on putting together modules and get the right delay calculation. But actually, it's a very simple, clean digital delay line, as you would consider to make it in the first place. Just fill a buffer and repeat that.
Cool. I was also wondering, so like, cause you said you used to have like the 90s version of the lexicon. So you had like these units and you were playing with them, or were you like working in a studio
I'm
before?
I'm still having them.
Oh, cool. That's nice.
Yes, haven't been here before, so let me briefly repeat that. No, I'm a professional sound engineer, and doing that for over 20 years now. I've seen many studios from inside, and what you see here is the background of the control room in recording Studio B. I have two studios, Studio A, Studio B. I work for my regular income in another studio at a music academy, and I've been working in several other studios. So I have a lot of this stuff myself. I have friends who own this stuff and would give it to me for me to try. How does it sound? Am I near with my plugin? Things like that, and yeah, it's possible for me to get all those things in my hands. A friend just told me, well, I have this Roland Space Echo here. Would you like to try it? So I'm doing different things now, but maybe I'll tell you when.
Nice.
And maybe you know him from his YouTube channels. Is the Synth King, crazy guy.
Never heard.
All his studio crammed with the brutal, most expensive synthesizers from Moog and Oberheims and Jupiters and stuff, CS80, CS60, and stuff like that. And yeah, he has a rack full of LA2As and 1176s and Fairchilds and Ravens and lexicons, and if you need something, you just ask him. He has everything.
Nice.
And now, since last week, I have something old on my desk here. I don't see my camera. Is that you can see that, right?
Yes.
I
That is
can't
the
see that, but I
tape,
don't recognize it.
Tascam, like a tape looper, right?
Yeah, it's a Yamaha.
Oh, it's Yamaha.
It's a Yamaha. I got that from friends who just clean up their storage, and there was a case, a flight case where things were in, and I dig that thing out. So it's a 4-track tape recorder that records 4 tracks in one direction and has a little mixer in it and can double the tape speed for better audio quality, and it perfectly works. It has been in a case, so it's dust free and everything works very fine. I wonder what I will do with that, but in some way I make something of that. And yeah, I have all these units and strange things and exotic things as well. So yeah, I'm used to the sound. I know how a lexicon sounds, or I don't derive my my hearing impressions from other plugins.
That's super impressive. That's really cool.
And it's a really good point. I think that, like in some of the videos where I had your plugins on my channel, people would compare the plugins to other plugins and point out like how certain knobs or controls didn't behave the way that they believe they should function. But at the end of the day, I think it's best that people take your plugins, or any plugin for that matter, for what it is. If it sounds good, just use it and learn the controls for it.
Yeah, and I've done a video that seemed to be very convincing about the LA1A unit I made, where I then compared it on the on an analyzer and gain reduction analyzer, and made sound demos and things like that, and where I showed that I could replace the tubes and the opto elements of the original unit here on my desk, and I had the unit on my desk and the plugin on the screen, and I played them back with the same audio and said, well, how are they different? So don't compare it to other plugins, considering they are the thing. It's simply not true.
Right. You're based in Germany?
Yes, I'm based in Germany. I live here.
So one thing that people sometimes do is they release plugins for free for the notoriety. Do you think that it has affected your business? More clients are coming in and you're doing different types of work because of the plugins and the notoriety that came from them?
I'm not sure if I got you right here. So you mean that people come to me to work with me in my studio because I make these plugins?
Yeah, maybe they want a particular kind of sound that they know you would be able to get.
No, definitely not. My job is people often think that the job of a production engineer or a music producer or whatever you want to call these people like me, that the job is about finding a sound and say play it like this and I turn a knob like that and then I use this particular compressor and that particular microphone. That's so unimportant. You can use a great gear and achieve great results with it, but often I stand in my studio and say, well, I have to record a instrument like, I don't know, any instrument. And I stand at the microphone, close it and say, well, do I took a Sennheiser or is it a Schoeps or is it a Neumann I used today? Well, never mind, they're all fine. Just plays one. And the same is for compressors. I could say, well, yeah, I used the Urai or the Teletronics or the Alesis, and when it comes to having only this one will work as well. So the job is not about knowing everything about every compressor and every microphone and getting the cables with the gold connectors and having your monitor speakers at the exact correct height and things like that. It's not that. The job when my customers are there is about communication. So I need to understand what do they want. What should music do with the listeners or to the listeners? So how does it need to work? What kind of impression do you want to have? And for that, then I say, okay, for that impression, the guitar needs to be loud and the vocals need to be harsh or something like that. So, but that is decisions from communication. And sometimes people say, well, why don't we make the keyboards louder or why don't we have the strings more in the back? And then it comes to communication saying, well, hear how it sounds, the impression, do you want that? And that is then talking to people. And that's why people come to me. They constantly repeat that. Customers say they're coming to me and record at my studios because in other studios they had bad experience with people not communicating or communicating in a strange way, and say, well, that is how you make music, is together, is talking about it. What do we want to make? What do we want to achieve? And not talking about which compressor is the right thing, or is it the Gibson guitar, or could it be the Epiphone? So that is not so important, and this is not what you need to discuss in a studio. And as well, it's not what you need to discuss is, do you have the UAD plugins, or do I have Slate plugins, or do I have the Tukan Studios plugins? As long as you do the right sound, that doesn't matter.
I find that that's true of not only music production, but any kind of endeavor. Mostly the creative endeavors is mostly about communicating and being nice to work with, sometimes even more so than the technical aspects of the production.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it seems like at least the way you started with your plugins is very much in line with the idea that I think people had when they created JS Effects in the first place, which is like allowing people to click on the edit button and start tinkering and learning. And the question I have for you is, it can be challenging for some people, especially if they don't have a background in programming as you have, but it can be challenging to wrap your head around what's going on because the source code isn't always super clear to follow, and there are some deep mathematical things that one has to understand when they are developing plugins. So do you have like the road that you took to understanding these things and how you navigate something that is maybe deep and mathematical and you don't understand, how you go about figuring things out?
Well, first of all, I don't want to look at my own code because it's completely chaotic. So it's nothing you want to follow. But most of the plugins I see are, or the units I use for my plugins are not so long in their program code, so they don't have that many lines. So you can see, well, what's going on here? It seems to be this calculation is for this and this is for that. And many of the people who wrote the plugins were so kind to leave some comments like, this is calculated here and this line is inserted because of debugging or something like that. So you, in a way, know what is happening. And sometimes it's a bit a black box. But most of the time I don't use black boxes in my code. So it's more like I don't understand what's going on there. Let me see if I can find another plugin that does the same thing, and if I can understand it in the other code, and then go back to this code and see if I now understand that code. So that works. That often works. And I have a friend who is a PhD in physics, and he knows a lot of mathematics. And if I have a question, I can ask him, and the answer is always the same. Difficult. How do I explain that? Give me a week, and then he says, "Well, just use it. It's fine." But yeah, but I want to understand. Okay. How much do you know about convolution matrix? Oh, nothing. Okay, then keep it as it is. So, there. If he starts with mathematics, he writes down some things, and I say, okay, don't even understand the things you wrote there, because these are not mathematical things that I would even identify as a mathematical thing. No, I use code I can understand, I can get through and say, okay, well, in a way, I understand what's happening here. And it works most of the time because people are writing code very, very clearly, very good. And I think I'm worst practice on that.
Do you have some favorites? Like maybe the SQL plugins are really good. People could check them out. Like for people who are mostly music producers and they want to just learn something, what do you think would be a good start?
I didn't get that question right, I guess. Could you put that in other words, please?
Yeah, sure. So people sometimes want to learn more about how the plugins work, but they don't necessarily know where to start. It can be overwhelming because there are so many plugins and so many ideas going around. So do you have recommendations like, the first plugin I looked at was this one, it was really good for these reasons?
Not really, because I'm too deep dive in the audio thing as such. It's in a way many people are. I take many things for granted. Like I didn't think that the something plugin and some channel plugin were hard to get what they are doing and to understand. And I realized that this was too much for many people. So, and I thought, well, that is quite easy. So I think you're asking the wrong guy here for that.
What kind of music do you like? Like not only stuff you produce, but like just, I don't know, stuff you've been listening to lately. I'm kind of in a rut of musical discovery, so I'm just asking everybody.
Well, lately I've been hearing a lot of very these days pop music. And because I figured out that the pop music from 5 or 10 or 15 years ago has been stopped, and now there's a different kind, and that made me hear pop music again, because pop music from about 10 years ago I couldn't listen to. So it's it was, the sound aesthetics of that was just limiting, and having some of the most simple sounds you could ever use. And there were Rihanna things like where I found the drum loop in Logic in the third place of the list. So and then there was a distortion on it, and she sings, and a big pad synthesizer, and that's it. So and then a limiter pushing everything to about -3 loops. So that's simply not how you make music in my brain. So nowadays I like to hear that pop music again, and for a long period of time I've been then really switching back to a lot of CCR is great.
Cool.
And I've been going through Neil Young things, and Neil Diamond things are great. So really this songwriter, acoustic pop, early rock.
Nice. We should do another Ninja mic, and
we should. It's been a while.
Yeah.
John, we've got a
Speaking of
question in the
CCR.
comments for you, by the way. It's from New Morning Records, and he or she asks, John, what do you think about Analog Obsession plugins?
It's great. Absolutely great. I've been using them on a lot of projects in QS, because they're really, I don't know if you would say they're emulations or simulations, or but you look at it's exactly the same idea that I have with my plugins. You look at the plugin GUI, and you know what it's supposed to do or what you want to do with that. And I found them working quite good. They I could do good mixes with that. Sometimes I thought, well, this plugin is simply not my plugin. Maybe others can use it, but it's simply not for me. I never get a sound that I want from this plugin, and other plugins were simply great. And Tukan, I guess is his name, is doing a lot of great work there, and a lot of effort. I know that. And I have a deep respect for Analog Obsession plugins, especially when it comes to the oversampling engine, because we have done that in a very, very, very good way. I've just recently, yesterday or the day before, I looked at the audio analyzers for what is doing in my plugin without oversampling, then implementing oversampling, seeing, the kickbacks are just 6 dB lower, and I have to do something about that. And then I thought, take an Analog Obsession plugin, what's going here, and put that in and see the same kickbacks, and then turn on the oversampling knob, and all the kickbacks are absolutely gone. So, wow, okay, this is where I want to get with my plugins. So, I have someone to look up.
Very nice.
I like the Analog Obsession plugins a lot myself, but you mentioned earlier in the conversation about seeing a plugin and kind of knowing immediately what all the knobs and buttons do. I find myself having to refer to the manual frequently for several of the plugins, and I don't know if it's just me or maybe just I haven't used them often enough to get accustomed to what certain things do.
Was that a question?
Silence. Not really. I think I was just making a random comment.
I was just checking out the Brainworks just merged with like Isotope and Native Instruments, and they released a free download bundle. And there's a mastering compressor on there, which like as soon as you open it, there's about 1 trillion knobs.
That one is a really good one. I bought that one.
It is good, yeah.
But it was a little overwhelming. I had to read the manual a few times on that.
It's pretty crazy, yeah. And then I like it was a bit small, so I was like, how come this has like 2 ratios, 2 thresholds? Well, 4, but I got that like okay, it's multi-mono, or you can switch it to stereo. But then, because I couldn't read that one was for like the discrete module and one for the optical module, so I just suddenly was like, why the hell are there like 2 thresholds?
Yeah, and that's,
Because more is better.
Yeah, and this brings me to another idea of my plugins. It is the idea to make plugins you can really work with. So I often see plugins. Isotope are a good example for that. Where you have any option you like, and 1,000 knobs for everything. And there are, I think, mainly 2 kinds of users. Users who want to have all the freedom and options to do everything they want. And others who say, well, give me all those options and you gave me a plugin I can't work with. Because for some people, and that's the idea behind the equalizers in some channel, for example, in most of the cases, it's enough to just have, well, low mids somewhere around 300 hertz and in a white mode done. So you don't have to put the Q factor yourself and turn on and off this single filter, or maybe then have a filter inverse knob, so you don't have to boost and then again cut. You can just click that knob, and it's getting more and more and more and more and more. And an equalizer with 12 bands and mid-side processing and thing like ReEQ, which I really like. It's a great plugin, and I recycled that already. And that gives all those options you sometimes you need, but most of the time you just need these 3 controls. So right. And people get confused if they're overwhelmed by 1,000 things. Where you say, well, why are there 4 or 5 thresholds for so and that's simply not the idea of my plugins. I want to have plugins, and I use plugins where I say, okay, there are 3 controls, but these 3 controls are exactly the 3 controls I need. And not, and for every of these controls, I can set up 15 parameters, what exactly this one control does. So if these parameters are set in a good way from the manufacturer, it suits 99% of your needs. And sometimes you just need to use another plugin then. But you could make a plugin that just does everything. And I could make a plugin that runs 100 years of calculation and then says 42. But I don't know if people want that.
Yeah, like you don't want to go the other way. Like Waves had these like 1 knob plugins. And
I
some
think
of them
they are a bit too simple.
That's a little too much. Yeah. And I mean, like one of them is a filter, so like fine. Like if you need something to like quickly, like I don't know, automate it or whatever, it's fine. But some of them are like, there's like, I'm trying to think, there's a 1 knob compressor, which I'm like, how does that even, like 2 knobs, okay, I'm fine with that, but like a 1 knob compressor.
Well, I can imagine 1 knob compressor is a thing that I really, one of the very, very, very few things I can imagine as a 1 knob thing, as a 1 knob compressor, which is set to maybe 4x1, and you just have a threshold.
Like a set ratio, yeah, and then just a threshold, yeah.
Something like that. And you have that coming from analog units. There's this thing you have on Yamaha mixers often, which is just in every channel strip, you have 1 knob that says compress, and you can turn compress. So that's a 1 knob thing. And
the ratio is set, right? And like attack, release, and I guess auto makeup.
Yes, and I don't exactly know if the ratio is set fixed or if the ratio and threshold moves with 1 knob.
Oh, I see. Even that would make more sense. But yeah, I always feel like you play with the threshold a bit, then you kind of play with the ratio a bit.
It's like a one knob thing for if you have a filter, equalizer filter gain, which also controls the bandwidth, which is quite common.
Yeah, I have an EQ like that, which I really like. It kind of like it makes it easier to kind of see what the cue is doing, because you're not suddenly just changing like a lot of loudness parameters, because it kind of adjusts itself as you're adjusting the cue.
Yeah.
Super useful.
And that's kind of devices I come from. So the analog devices don't have or there are at least I know one compressor where you can really switch from opto compressor to Varimu to FET compressor and VCA compressor and everything. So there's a unit is basically 7 compressors in one housing. And strange thing from Tegeler Audio Manufacture. And well, usually you have a compressor like this is my compressor. It's an DBX VCA compressor. So you have a VCA compressor and you have these 4 controls it just offers you. And you don't have the knee factor and a mode switch and things like that. And when it comes to plugins, people tend to want to have these options. Well, you don't really need these options because you can make great mixes on analog gear and you don't have these options either. So if you have a mastering unit, and the most masterings I heard that I found are very good were masterings that are primarily done in the analog domain. Where people said, okay, I have a Manley or a Neumann filter thing and a compressor thing, and I pushed my signal through it, and then I just put a digital limiter and a intersample peak clipper. Or things like that. So you can do this with a few knobs, and it's simply not a question of having a threshold for mono here and side there and left and right,
right.
and multi-mono again. So it's about if you have this one knob, it simply depends on your ears if you know where to put that simple knob to get the right sound. So, and too many controls are just confusing. I think they want to reach a market where people say, well, I'm the absolutely genius who has control over 5,000 knobs at once, and I want every ability available to shape my sound. And on the last page, those people just take another plugin and turn one knob.
To me, what you just described is like everything that Line 6 or Kemper makes. I mean, like, I recall once upon a time when I tried using some Line 6 products just because everybody loved them and sang their praises, I felt that it was a bit overwhelming because I had so many options. I discovered that I'm no longer playing guitar, but I'm just constantly tweaking, looking for the better way to optimize or perfect my sound. Whereas these days, I just want to plug into an amp and start playing. I love the simpler interface because it gets the job done quickly.
Yes. Definitely. Most guitarists I know using campers use presets or take effort in building some own presets and then just use it, and don't go in a recording session. They won't go and say, well, let me change this bias parameter just for 0.2 dB. So somewhere else. It's simply not happening, and it's a bit this what all music producers know is the Yamaha DX7 effect. So the effect you have a keyboard that is not controllable by someone who is not like whatever genius. So that is why they could sell so many of these ROM cards. It had so many good sounds, and people kept buying these ROM cards and putting them in because nobody was able to program that synthesizer. and people who could make many dollars producing ROM cards. And there was a synthesizer with, you have an ability for everything, and here's the manual where it describes how to access this. And the regular keyboard player who didn't spend his time on studying math, but on practicing piano, looked at this and said, well, okay, I don't understand that. I just use it because everyone wants me to use this keyboard sound.
Yeah.
And for too complicated plugins, what people are doing is they keep going through the presets and trying to find one that fulfills the job. I've often seen that in wavetable synthesizer plugins.
Right. It can, because it's also like, okay, like if I have to turn like 50 knobs to get started, like I might as well get to a starting point to adjust from there, because then you like, what do I start at the top? And by the time I'm at the end, I got to go back and adjust things because the settings on the bottom like change stuff. Or the perfect example of this to me is the Flow Motion by Waves again, because it's such a good sounding synth, but it's so damn complicated. And like I used it for a while, and I was just like, I'm mostly going from presets and adjusting things from there. And it took me so long to figure out like there's a button in the middle, and if you click on it, you get a whole new menu, like literally 100 more parameters that are like on the other side.
What you see is you were so overwhelmed and confused of all those parameters that you just missed this red big button in the middle.
Labeled press me.
Yeah, and that keeps blinking all the time. Yeah, and that is simply not how creativity works. So I completely go with Mike and say, well, I have this angle tube amp there, which has, let me count, 2, 4, 6, 8 controls. And I exactly know what they're doing without looking at them. So, and that is a guitar amp I really can play with, and that won't interrupt my creativity. So if I say, well, I have an idea for a great synthesizer sound, and then I start opening a synthesizer plugin and have 500 controls to adjust a sound. Well, that is nice for a sound designer. But for me, I press the key and I press it 10 times and I forget what sound I intended to make. It's simply not usable then.
This is why I don't use synthesizers, because I feel like a deer in the headlights as soon as I open up the plugin.
Yeah, and that is why I like synthesizers like the Jupiter synthesizers by Roland, which are completely analog. So you have these sliders on the top, and you can simply like on a mixing desk, you can grab all and flip them down, and then push them up and see what happens and know what it's doing. And then I started making sounds on the what is it? It's laying there. It's a Korg Poly, and this was an analog synthesizer that is digitally controlled. And there you have to go through, well, I want to turn that knob. That is knob 53. And then I want to turn it to value 22. Okay.
I love the sound of knob
and then press the
53.
key again.
I love that sound. Knob 53 at setting 22 is perfect.
Yeah. And making a synthesizer sound on this is possible, but you really have to keep in mind what you want it to do, because it needs such a long time. And the more controls you have, the more complicated is it to really don't do synthesizer sounds by turning knobs and having luck.
That brings about an interesting thought for me. So on the opposite end of the spectrum from the overcomplicated plugins, what's your thought on the advent of all these one knob plugins?
Well, most of them are quite too simple. That's more like toys. Sometimes, I don't use it but sometimes it's fun. Like if you say, well, and now I have here a little effect going on only once while everything is silent, and I need just a bit of ambience on it. Then one knob ambience, okay. But most of the time it's quite too simple. So you often need some controls, but you don't need all controls.
True. A nice happy medium.
So, John, sometimes when we have guests over, the plugin developers, they bring some kind of plugin that they are developing or that they have developed, or something that they want to show, something that maybe they're releasing in the near future, or something that they have worked in the past that they want to share because it's fun and interesting and different. Do you want to... Do you have something for us? Did you bring some plugin or some snippet of code or some idea that you want to share?
Well, I hope everybody has seen the some channel thing, which kept me going the last few weeks. I've been working on that, and I just finished the. I hope I just finished the work on that. I finished the work on the features and the main debugging. So now it seems to work, and what comes now is a bit of making details or last minor debugging and things like that. And I'm planning a new plugin, but I haven't started yet. But I can show you the idea if you like.
Yeah, I'd like that.
Sure.
So, could you turn on my screen then?
Here
And
it
my
is.
apologies if it seems
yeah,
like
okay,
I'm
I
not
see.
attentive. I'm doing my day job on the other screen here for a moment. Pretending I'm at the clinic.
I was wondering actually, John, like when you're kind of conceptualizing a plugin, do you kind of just sit down and kind of like think of like what the ultimate kind of goal is and think of like what the UI will look like, or do you make the plugin first and UI comes afterwards?
Most of the time, it's like I have something in my mind that I want to make, and then I'm looking for ways to do it properly. So coming from the analog things, I often I come to the idea of making things when, for example, just because it's here, this little funny denoiser thing was one of them, where I said, well, a denoiser is so simple. It's a threshold and a key filter. And that is how you would make a de-essing. You would use a Alesis 3032 compressor, or how they're called, and give them a sidechain key that is filtered. So, boom, de-esser. And I thought, well, why don't I make a de-esser that simple way? Because it works so good. And I see multi-band de-essing and everything in plugins, and people are confused, and they say in some forums, well, this is a good sounding de-esser, this is a not so good sounding, well, this is too aggressive, this is not aggressive enough, and I think, well, why don't you or why do you use de-essers at all? Just use your favorite compressor and send in a key signal. So this is why I made this particular plugin. And so I had in my mind, okay, you need the threshold. That would be the big control, and you a key in, a key out, and a key listen. So and the gain reduction. So I have the idea of what kind of unit would I use if I want to achieve a certain goal, and then the plug-in making starts. So I really concept this before, not in detail, but I really concept before what would I really need there and what would I really leave out there. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, new idea.
Yeah.
Ready? Okay. So we've seen these metering things here all the time in my videos. And there was something that Adam Steele brought me to. He asked me if I can make a plugin like that. It was kind of his idea. And now yesterday we kept on going through ideas how things are how things could work, and he said, well, you can make the VU meters in the mixer like that, so you have your meter bridge, but when you go editing, your meter bridge is gone. And then you could have your meter bridge in a vertical way. And he said, well, couldn't it be so cool to just pull down the editing window a bit and have the meter bridge all the time at the top? So very simple idea. And this is what will be happening. So in a way, it's like it will be one master plugin in the master, and that is what you then see would be a meter and another meter. Okay, you see what I mean? What's up here? Okay, I've done something wrong. So meter, and then you would have your channel plugins where you just say from this channel, in this point in the channel, feed meter number 4. Or meter number 8, or whatever you want. So you can place your meters however you want to place them, and you can also rearrange your tracks, and the feeders the meters will still be in the same place.
Cool.
So, and that would be a console meter bridge, which would be, I think it will be configurable from 8 to 16 to 24 on one horizontal line, or 4 by 2. If you want a little window, you can swipe around, or if you have a second screen, you want it in some other way. So you can choose then and feed that from the channels and leave out what you don't need. So sometimes you don't need a channel for the third doubling of a vocal. So you just need for a meter bridge in the VU meter mode. It's in practice it's you're seeing, well, there's something going on and about how much. And you're not going to read exact values. So
how are you going to change the Reaper interface to show those view meters on the top? Do you plan on using a Reaper script with a user interface that you can dock?
No, it's simply JS plugin as always. So I'll make a very a plugin that will be a screen wide, or you can resize that, of course, and that will be a plugin in your master chain, and then you will just turn or leave the space on the top of your screen or off the bottom of the screen, wherever you want.
Oh, that's smart. So you literally have a separate window.
The plugin and leave it open all the time.
I get it. Yeah, I thought that you were moving the window just to show where the meters would show up, but you are planning on just having the JS Effects plugin window just open. That's smart.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. I would use that. It for some reason it reminded me of the MCX FX list script. Have you seen that?
No.
It came before you could get a list of plugins like on the track without opening the FX window. But it's kind of a script that you dock to the side, and then as you scroll, or if you resize or zoom in on your tracks or collapse folders and stuff, it knows that, and then so it keeps showing you like the correct list. It's always like right next to the track that it's on. But that's smart too, because also I guess seeing it above just from it's kind of psychologically like where you would look for metering. You know, like on a console, your meters will be kind of right in front of you or above the desk. So that makes a lot of sense. That would be really cool.
Yeah. So you can, I guess you can switch off this screen view.
And then the idea, would it be like you would need the kind of master version of that on the master track, and then on any track that you want the meter of, you put like a follow kind of JS effects, like it's a double pair of JS effects.
Call it a feeding. So you just put a second. So there's a master effect, and ascending or a feeding effect that you just throw in your insert slot, and where you then just give the number of on which meter you want to have the level that is passing through this particular plugin.
Nice. Could
So
even be
very,
on
very
the
simple.
monitoring effects, maybe.
Yeah, however
Yeah.
you want that.
Cool. Nice. That's a great idea.
So John, I see that you're using the white tie Imperial theme. Is that as is, or have you customized it?
You added your own logo to it. To
I
the
spotted
mask.
that. I wasn't sure if that was an overlay in Skype or what.
I really customized that. You can see my screen, I guess. Yeah. You can see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. I customized that. In the white tie, I really love the white ties theme. That's why I modified it.
Are you running 1080p or 4K screen?
That is a neither, I think.
That was close.
That is a 12-year-old iMac. They had, let me see. Can put that on screen here. Standard for monitor. Yeah, okay. Much information. To 2,500 something.
2560 by 1440, I guess.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that.
Because I saw that and I was just thinking, I finally upgraded to 4K monitors like a week ago, and my old eyes are still adjusting, but it's making me want to try this theme again.
Yeah, and I modified that in some minor points. So the fader caps are much wider than on the original white tie thing, and in the original white tie there are so tiny little mute knobs that are called cut on this mixer, and from big mixing consoles like from ADT or SSL, I know that they have a big yellowish backlighted on knob if the channel is on, and a smaller solo knob, and so I made this like the big consoles on the market. And there's this Tukan, yes, but it's not always there. If you're master, it still says white tie Imperial.
And I'm looking back and forth at
Don't
White
forget
Tie's
where you're coming
site
from.
comparing. This is interesting.
And then I made some color faders for me. I have this with the SWS extensions made up for me, like if something is sent in this, it is a purple knob, and if it's a group, it's a blue knob, and things like that. So I instantly see what I'm doing there. And that's an idea coming from Cubase, of course.
Do you have any plans to host on possibly the Reaper Stash, the Tukan version of White Tie Imperial?
Well, it's on my Patreon side, and I can't host
I
that
think I
on
just
Reaper.
revealed that I haven't done Patreon. I'm sorry.
Map. No, and I would share it on Stash. I plan to share it on Stash, but my zip file is too big. I don't know why, but it is a bit too big, so I can't share it on Stash because the limit is, what is it, 2 megabytes?
It's very low.
It's very, very low.
But see,
So-
that's just an incentive for people to subscribe to your Patreon to continue to support the development of both your plugins and this theme. I approve this message.
Yeah, tell everybody to visit my Patreon site for this particular theme, because
It's
every
linked in
time,
the description too.
yeah, every time I make a video, even if I tell in the description, and here's the theme, yeah, and put the link, 2 or 4 people always ask, "Wow, nice! What theme?"
Yeah, I get that, and I use the default. I'm like, what is?
Yeah,
how are people
I saw that.
asking
I
me
saw that. I
all the
thought that was funny. Well, somebody making up a joke, I think.
I also said your Patreon link is in the description, but then I just remembered we're not on my channel.
Your
but maybe
Patreon
Leander,
link
you could
will
add
be in the
that.
description.
See, Arya, this is the part where you chastised us for proceeding with this.
It got a little crazy because I was like, okay, cool, I'll go wash the dishes and stuff, and then I came back and I was like, whoa, what's happening? Uh, but I had a question for you that it wasn't a question, but I wanted to give you an update on the one knob plugins by Wave. Because, okay, what I really hate about the one knob compressor is that they actually have three one knob compressors, but I think the only thing that changes is the ratio, and two of them have makeup gain and one of them doesn't. So it's really just like very shady business practices because they want you to buy three plugins, whereas they could have like a one knob compressor with three modes or something. So
But
it's
the faithful Wave
inconvenient.
people will buy it.
Yeah, it's also just inconvenient as a user because like you have to bring in three plugins and like A/B them using your DAW versus going like, oh, okay, one knob compressor, like I'll dial it in to a certain extent, then I'll like switch between and see which one I like. So that's just really shady, shady Waves action right there that they have three one knob compressors.
Well, they can do whatever they want, and I think I'm right if there's this if a fixed word in English which would say, well, I don't buy it.
Yeah,
True.
So you don't need to buy everything that is made by Waves. They're making plugins, yes, and DigiGrid. And of course it works. And of course, there is a lot of commercial for them, even from people who actually don't get paid by them.
And
oh, I didn't know that.
are you interested in the idea of starting developing your plugins in C++? Or because I ask that because I think that it isn't really viable to commercialize plugins written in JSFX since the source is just right there. But is it something that you may be interested in the future?
Never say never. But well, I'm doing that in JS and it works fine. And I'm not so into this C plus thing. If I was, I would have the Steinberg SDK and do VST plugins. So it has reasons why I'm in JS, and I really don't need and don't want and don't intend to commercialize anything here.
I'm on the same page. The more I learn about C++, the more I like JSFX.
Just with C++, like as soon as I realized I gotta like install a compiler, I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna make like 100 syntax errors, and then I have to compile and then find out that I messed up. I was like, I'm out.
Yes, and well, that's one of the things. But it's not my business, you could say. Making plugins. I make plugins, yeah, but it's not my business. So I have a job, and I earn my money with audio engineering, and making plugins kind of fun to me. So I don't need to make plugins for some kind of market purpose. Now everybody needs every plugin collection needs some kind of one knob things or some kind of 1,000 knob things. I just make what I want to do, and if people like it, they say, "Wow, I like it." Some support me with code, with graphics. Some click on Patreon on my Patreon, and that's nice. But I think I don't want it to be that big that it is VST and usable in any DAW and a competitive or a competitor to Waves, because I think these companies can be very aggressive.
Yeah, that's how you get trolls
something
too.
I really don't want.
If you
Yes,
release a
and
one knob plugin
there's
next week, I'm going to call you out on it.
Right. And I think that that's a lovely way for us to wrap up. So people who are interested in John's plugins can go to Patreon and support him, or just in general be supportive and help with the development by testing things out, reporting bugs, getting in touch, being nice. And do you all have like final comments and questions before we wrap up?
Oh, I have a dumb question. It's one that's been asked on a lot of these discussions lately. John, what's your favorite cereal?
Guess you want me to say Fruit Loops.
Oh, you were a step ahead of me. I wasn't even thinking about that, but good answer.
All right. So let's wrap up. And then, thank you very much, you all, for being here with us today. Thank you, Mike and John, for taking the time to talk to us. It has been lovely, and I certainly learned a lot from talking to you and watching your videos and using your plugins, John. So awesome work there. Congratulations. And thank you, everyone who was on the chat. Bo, as usual, is here, and we love her presence. And LD Drums 20, and plenty of other people showed up, so that's great. And yeah, I think that this is it for now, because I am dying here. I need to lay on my bed again. So I see
I'm
you.
wishing I hadn't drank all that water before we started.
John, whenever you get a troll, write me a message on Discord.
It will be okay.
Yeah, and anything else that we want to plug? Yeah, we want to plug Mike's course. Do you want to tell people about the course?
I will do my best to do it quickly because this water is really working me. But I have a drum editing in Reaper course that's available on Pro Mix Academy. I'm not sure if they still have it at the introductory rate, but whether it's at the introductory rate or if they've jacked up the price, you should get it because I like dollars.
Doris, the new coffee.
All right. So thank you all for being here, and I see you on the next one, which I don't know when it will be. Typically, I would have the meeting for our C++ study group tomorrow, but I am not feeling so great, so I may need to postpone that. So I see you all
need
around.
To take care of yourself, man.
I see you all around. Thanks for being here.
See you guys.
Thank you for watching the stream, you know how great it has been. Or maybe it sucked, and I am glad that you stuck with me. And so we'll be back together for some more coding or talking or chilling. The next time I'll be streaming.